I would say it at least needs to go to 30, 35 and sustain there. And then you get into the supply and demand side. And, at some point here, with the green movements that exist in the world and everything else, you're going to have to get a bunch of new silver assets online to replace the production that's being lost. Because the silver, as much as First Majestic likes to hold their silver, they can only do it for 2 or 3 months before, they're out of cash. So they're still having to sell into this market. You can't just say, well, we don't like the price, we're going to hold it and sit on it, because they all go bankrupt overnight or within a month or two. So it's a problem and it needs to change. And you have governments around the world pushing the green movement, and silver, for whatever reason, hasn't been picked up in that idea of being the critical metal and having to. But when you start looking at the infrastructure, you start looking at solar, you start looking at wind, all these component parts, the infrastructure that's needed to power even a small percentage of what these Western governments are pushing, on the idea that we're going to have no gas fossil fuel vehicles sold after 2030 or 2035, or depending on the state or province that you're in. That's not possible. It's not like the power grid doesn't even remotely exist to power 10% of that. So all of these parts and components through that whole line need silver, and you're just going to amplify that difference of being what's produced and what's out there. The JP.
If the growth targets of the world are going to be met, and the green energy targets, well, obviously those are ifs. I mean, no one says they have to be, but let's assume it's government policy that they will be. We're going to have to produce, as a world, in the next 20 years, we're going to have to dig out, mine, as much copper as in the whole of history. That is just an awesome thought. And I mean, whether that's at all practical, I don't know. But all I do know is that if that's needed, it's difficult to achieve. I mean, you're not going to have years of the price languishing while people think about producing something, because otherwise we'll miss it. It's got to be produced to meet those targets. So the only way is that the copper price goes up, all those targets get put on ice, or people say, well, forget it, we're going to go with the diesel for the next 50 years. And okay, well, that would change the dynamic. But I think copper is probably one of the commodities I'm the most bullish on. I mean, certainly lithium, but copper, it's a metal with a much deeper market. It's been well traded for decades, hundreds of years.
In Australia, so I can't I can't bag the system. But look, honestly, as far as permitting and getting things done from a let's say a administrative point of view, Botswana and Brazil are far quicker than Australia and easier. The red tape in Australia is quite significant at the moment, but where we are in Kalgoorlie, we've been there for a while, so we don't have too many issues. We're exploring. I mean, if you wanted to go into mining and that, it would be a whole different situation, and probably the same in the other countries. But look, Botswana is, called the Switzerland of Africa. It's a great place to do business, and I've been astounded by how easy and it is to do what we've been doing there, going and doing a drilling program. There's good, capable people in Botswana. But
Rainbow at full production, which is targeting to start production towards the end of 2026, we'll be producing about between 1,850 and 2,000 tons of these 4 magnet rare earth oxides, which is about a third of the size of Lynas currently, which Lynas is the largest producer outside of Australia. So that gives your listeners an idea of the size Rainbow will be. So our market cap doesn't reflect where we will be in terms of relationship to MP Materials or Lynas for that matter. But being a reasonable producer, we have been targeting selling our separated oxides to independent supply chain outside of China, and that's what we're working very hard on being part of. So with that, we signed an MOU to supply LCM, which is a facility in the UK. And now LCM, it's a well-established UK business which takes separated oxides, turn it into metal, then alloy. Now, that's another part of the supply chain that then feeds the permanent magnet manufacturers. Now, they supply Schmalz, which is a permanent magnet manufacturer in Germany, as well as Arnold Magnets in the US and some other clients, I'm sure. But LCM, importantly, are expanding now in the US on the back of an agreement with General Motors.
And what has your sort of research indicated?
Yeah, I mean, part of it's from our research, part of it's from just our strategic knowledge. But I think if you split those two things from like product marketing and branding as a company or an industry, I'll chat about the product while separate them out because they're a bit different. But from a product perspective, I think there's value that's on the table that mining companies don't get, mostly because they're so focused on, on the ore body and development of, focused in a different direction, if you like, than, say, a product manufacturer. But, and also because margins are really driven by the nature of the ore body and cycles. So, they're either very big or, not so big. Whereas, so if you compare, but then therefore the marketing in our data has shown that it's a low priority for innovation, like one of the lower priorities. I think only community is lower, which isn't good. So it's, what that means is money's left on the table.
Well, the Corvette discovery, it's really meaningful on a global scale. It's the largest in the Americas, and our view is that it will continue to get larger. It's a really, really amazing piece of geology, and actually that's what got me involved and excited about participating with Patriot in the first instance. And again, it's a lot of fun. Building mining projects is the best part of the mining cycle. I've been lucky enough to have done a lot of it in my career, and I really enjoy it. It's great building the team and building the culture in the company, and being part of something that's really significant. I guess the last thing I'd say about Patriot and the Corvette discovery is the other reason it's significant is that it's going to become, or we're confident it's going to become, a key part of solving for the new supply chains that are required to be developed ex-China. China is very, very dominant in the lithium-ion battery scene. They control, once you go beyond raw materials, they control typically more than about 80% of the capacity in every facet of the lithium-ion battery supply chain, right from value-added chemicals through to the cells themselves, and I would argue soon to be EVs, if not already. So the West ultimately has to build some diversity into their supply chains, and I feel like the Corvette discovery, because of its scale, is going to be a really important part of solving for a lot of North American supply and probably European supply as well.
The Homestake mine was in production from 1870 to 2001. 40 million ounces of gold and almost 9 grams was mined. So it's the largest BIF, the largest banded iron formation hosted deposit in the world. And when Barrick acquired Homestake in 2001, they didn't acquire Homestake for South Dakota. In fact, the decision was already made to shut the mine down. So Dakota Gold Corp would be the third company born out of Barrick's closure group under the Mark Bristow-led Barrick era, where the other two companies born out of Barrick's closure group would be K92, which has a really robust, really exciting mine in Papua New Guinea that's growing. It's got a massive endowment. And then the Skeena Resources, which is flirting with $1 billion company, 5.5 to 6 million ounces and growing, will be easily a 300,000 ounce a year producer. And then there's Dakota Gold Corp. So what we saw was an opportunity to really be first mover and to acquire these assets out of Barrick's closure group. And we got all of the historic data, which had never been digitized. It was all in analog, all in paper, boxes. And we took 18 months to digitize everything. And that really led and drove this consolidation opportunity, going from 5,000 acres to 50,000 acres. And it really importantly informed our exploration program.